Story time. 3 full nights where ordinary systems behave like they remember someone who isn't there. A farm ledger that changes counts, a corporate garage that writes wet footprints with no feet, and a highway pull-off that keeps greeting the same car with the engine cold. Hey, glad you're here! I keep the lamp low and tell history carefully. Real places, real dates, steady detail. Before we start, do our 3 soft checks with me. Slow breath in, loosen your jaw, thumb on the table, click the quiet key. Drop your city and local time in the comments and add what you're listening on, so our little night map can circle the world. New calm history horror arrives most nights. If this keeps you company, wait until the video ends to subscribe, then tap the bell so the next file finds you. After, tell me what detail stayed with you. Let's begin. He clocks in at 18:02, the first clear evening after a hard frost. By then the fields have turned silver under the porch flood, and every sound carries farther than it should. The air smells of sweet hay and cold apples. Somewhere in the dark a chain hits a gate and settles. The porch light hums a single, steady note above the door. Inside, the farm store breathes like a cellar. Wood walls, faint cider syrup, the waxy scent of unlit candles. As always, his loop is simple. Porch light checked, register counted, back door latched, blue barn padlock firm. He's done this for 8 autumns. His hands know where the keys are before the light does. He writes small notes because small notes keep him awake. 18:11, cash drawer balanced. 18:14, heater off. 18:16, barn lock secured. His handwriting is tight and careful, like he's leaving messages to his later self. By 18:45, the air stiffens, frost creeps along the inside of the window glass. He pours coffee from the thermos, the smell mixing with sweet corn and dust. Out in the field, the irrigation pipe gleams like a long bone. At 19:10, he counts the carving kits stacked near the door, 24 boxes, each with a bright orange sticker. He writes the number and draws a square around it because boxed numbers don't wander overnight. He taps the pen twice on the margin, a small ritual before moving on. Then, while he's closing the drawer, the receipt printer wakes with a tiny mechanical sigh. It spits a half-inch of blank paper, no code, no total, just a soft curl. He tears it off, studies the edge. Nothing printed. He smooths it flat on the counter and adds a note. Printer advanced on its own, 1914. At 1942, the tablet glows back to life, though he's already powered it down. The screen shows a receipt number out of order. Total, $0. Item, carriage, void. He stares until the screen dims, then restarts it properly. It freezes halfway through boot. The cursor blinks once, then stops. He sighs, sets the register key under the mat, just as the owner likes, and wipes his hand on his jeans. For a second, the grit beneath the mat feels different, coarse, like crushed seed instead of sand. He looks, but the porch boards are clean. Outside, fog gathers low over the lot. He switches on his flashlight, a narrow yellow beam that cuts between the hay wagons. By habit, he walks the line of pumpkins set near the steps, 20 left side, 19 right, same as yesterday. One has caved slightly at the top, a soft dent like a thumbprint. He presses the surface, it holds, then releases a faint, sweet smell. He moves on toward the blue barn. Halfway there, the wind drops and every sound stops with it. The lock hangs still, frost blooming across the brass. He touches it with the back of his fingers. It feels colder than the air itself. He doesn't open it yet. Instead, he listens, the kind of long listen that makes your ears ring. The maple branches scratch once, then settle. Nothing more. At 20:11, a noise rises inside the barn, a cough from the grain elevator, short and dry, like a belt catching on metal. power's off at the panel. He knows because he shut it himself. He lays a palm to the corrugated wall. Still. Too still, he decides, for a sound like that. He keeps his hand there until his skin sticks to the cold. Back at the porch, he writes it down. 2011, elevator sound heard with power off. He leaves a blank space after the time as if the paper might finish the sentence for him later. By 2019, he runs the kit count again. 23 boxes. He frowns, counts twice, gets the same number. Maybe he moved one earlier, maybe someone did before him. Either way, he writes 23, then under it, recount tomorrow. He prefers problems he can schedule. Then he takes another slow walk to the porch. The wind picks up, colder now. Something creaks high in the siding, once, twice, like 2 careful steps overhead. He angles the flashlight upward, just rafters and spider webs. He lowers the light, finds his reflection in the store window, and for half a breath it looks like someone else. Same coat, same build, but head turned the other way. He blinks and it's gone. At 20:41, the landline phone in the office clicks, one short pulse as if it caught a call and lost it. The screen shows no line. He lifts the receiver anyway. Air faint and uneven like someone exhaling slowly through cloth. He hangs up without a word. He checks his watch, 20:47, so he decides to stay busy. He empties the trash, stacks cider bottles, sweeps near the back freezer. The hum of the cooler is steady again. The air feels normal, almost kind. Then, at 21:03, his phone vibrates in his pocket. It's the barn camera, motion alert, person detected. He opens the image. The frame is all grey noise except for a fogged shape, breath in cold air hanging near the wagon where the corn maze signs are stored. No person, just that brief mark. He stares until the pixels shift. He debates ignoring it. After a breath, he calls the owner, keeps the line open and walks out anyway. They talk in low tones. Might be condensation, the owner says. Or a moth. He agrees because that's easier. He takes the side door this time, not the big slider that screams on its rail. The flashlight shakes slightly as he fits the key. When he pushes the door open, the smell hits first. Old wood, hay, the faint chemical tang of cleaning solution from years ago. Light comes up slow as the bulbs warm. Dust hangs in columns, drifting like slow snow. The owner's voice murmurs on the line, asking what he sees. "Just bales," he says, "and the wagon." Then a tap comes from under the wagon. 2, close together, like knuckles on wood. He stops talking. They both hear it through the phone. He kneels, careful not to touch the dust film on the floor. The flashlight catches something thin beneath the axle, a long carving knife, still in its plastic sleeve. The wrap shines like fresh water. He slides it out and sets it across his knee. No fingerprints, no smudges, just the cold gleam of unused steel. Slowly, he reads the brand name stamped on the handle. It's from the same kit, set sold up front. He glances toward the door, where the wind moves faintly under the gap, as if breathing with him. He logs it exactly. 21:17, knife found under wagon, shrink wrap on. He adds a short line beneath, possible drop from shelf. Check inventory. After a moment, he stands, sets the knife on the counter near the barn door, and kills the lights one by one. Each bulb dies with a tiny click, the last leaving only the halo from his phone screen. He steps outside. The air feels heavier, like the night gained weight while he was inside. Fog presses close, thick enough to bead on his jacket. The porch bulb flickers twice, steadies, flickers again. He walks toward it, each crunch of gravel slightly out of sync with his steps. At the porch, he rests his clipboard against the wall and exhales through his nose, a sound too soft to echo. For a long second, nothing moves. Then, from the far side of the barn, something metallic shifts. A hinge, a latch, maybe wind. He doesn't go check. Some noises are meant to be left for daylight. He locks the door, presses the latch twice to be sure, and writes his final line of the night. 21:25, store secured. Atmosphere odd but stable. Later, sitting in the truck with the headlights off, he watches frost start to climb the windshield from the corners in. The barn light behind him steadies itself and burns like nothing ever happened. He comes back the next night like always, a little early on purpose. Around dusk the fields are the colour of old coins and the porch light throws a thin oval on the boards. He unlocks the door and lets the warm air roll out, that mix of apples and cardboard and whatever the wood has kept from summers before. He makes a small choice to start at the barn, not the counter. It isn't procedure, it's just what his feet want. Out by the blue siding, the cold sits lower, like a bench somebody forgot to put away. The padlock hangs straight again, brass clean, frost in the stamp marks. He remembers touching it last night and how it felt too cold for the air. Tonight it's just cold, which somehow feels worse. He doesn't open it yet. He goes back to the porch, flicks the store lights, and listens for the cooler fans to settle into their long breath. He likes that sound. It tells him the night will have a flaw. Inside, the counter looks the same. Tablet dark, receipt printer quiet. He sets his clipboard down and counts the carving kits. One pass, then another, fingertip to sticker like he's telling them good night. 23 again. He tries not to do the math on his face. He writes the number plainly, no square around it this time. He checks the register, draws right. Bills lie flat the way he left them. He finds the little blank strip he tore off yesterday and smiles without meaning to. It feels like catching your own footprints. The landline shows no line the way it did before. He lifts the receiver anyway. Air, not even that slow cloth sound from last night. He sets it down softer than needed, like it might bruise. He decides to walk the side aisle where they stack lantern kits and mugs. Dust on the shelf tells him nobody's grabbed anything strange. He runs a thumb through the powder and leaves a clean line. Halfway down there's space where a case ought to be, a rectangle on the board that's lighter than the rest. Maybe they sold it before close the day before yesterday. Maybe he moved it. He can't say. He writes, lanterns, count tomorrow with owner, because tomorrow always feels like a better place for missing things. Back at the door, the bell string ticks once on no wind. He stops and lets the room finish. Nothing else happens, which is its own echo. He thinks about the knife in the barn. He didn't tell the deputy. He told the owner that was enough for one night. If he calls the deputy, it means he believes something, and he's not ready for that belief to have a badge. He pockets the keys and heads to the barn. The side door opens easier than it should, like somebody oiled it in a dream. He clicks on the light and lets it come up the slow way. Dust hangs. Bale twine makes lazy cursive in the rafters. The carving knife isn't where he left it. It's not on the little counter by the door. He looks at the floor first because things fall. That's their job. Nothing. He checks the wagon under the tarp, under the axle, where he found it the first time. Empty. He checks the shelf where the kit boxes sit, even though that's not where he put it. No space cut the width of a knife, no wrap, no sleeve, no dull shine. He stands there with one hand on the wagon and realizes he's holding his breath in a barn, like a kid. He calls the owner. Keeps it simple. Looks like the knife's not here. The owner pauses long enough to decide what kind of answer to give. Maybe one of the boys saw it this morning and moved it to backstock, he says. I'll ask. They both let that sit, the way you set a heavy box down and pretend you always meant to put it there. He hangs up and listens for the elevator to clear its throat again. Nothing. The stillness feels padded, good for sound, bad for thought. He turns the lights off and closes the door carefully, just enough pressure to hear the latch admit him. On the way back across the lot, his boots sink deeper than he expects, like the gravel forgot itself. He looks down and sees the same stones that were there yesterday, just colder. He glances over his shoulder at the road. A car goes by without its lights. For a second the barn's blue turns black, and then finds itself again. He feels foolish for watching it like a dog. Inside, the tablet wakes without being asked, bright enough to make the rest of the room feel far away. Same odd receipt number, same zero, same carriage, void. He reaches to shut it down and stops. He watches the cursor blink, not because it will say anything new, but because that's where his eyes land. He sets the tablet aside, screen down, like putting a picture face down when the house is empty. He decides to busy his hands. He straightens the candy display, breaks down 2 boxes, carries the cardboard to the back. The storeroom smells like oranges from a spilled cleaner years ago. He can't smell it and not think of winter. He hears the landline click once in the office. He doesn't go. Not because he's afraid, a word he doesn't like, but because he's used to the way buildings talk when they cool. He lets the office speak to no one for a minute. When it's quiet again, he goes in and checks the phone. Same no line. The desk calendar is still on the wrong week because he forgot to flip it, and that comforts him more than he means to let on. He turns the page and makes the world match the day. On his way out, the receipt printer wakes and feeds 2 inches of blank paper. It sounds like a zipper pulled slow. He tears it, pockets it without looking, and writes, "Printer, advanced, 2 inches, 2112. Because he doesn't want to make it larger with words it didn't earn. A little later, he does one more count because that's his defense. Pumpkins on the left, 19 now, not 20. He knows he isn't mixing sides. He points as he counts, a habit that makes him look like he's scolding fruit. The right side still has 19. He looks for the soft cave top he pressed last night. It's not there. A different one wears the small thumbprint now. He presses it and gets the same sweet air. He takes the porch step and sits, just to be low for a minute. The light hums overhead in that way that can be comfort or warning depending on a person's day. Tonight, it's neither. It's just there. He rubs his thumb along the edge of the blank receipt strip in his pocket until the paper warms. Somewhere past the silo, a dog barks twice and stops right on the end of its second breath. He waits for the third that doesn't come. He realizes he's counting again. He goes back inside. He wipes the counter with the cleaner that smells like a weak lemon. He writes his small lines, things that would look silly to anyone else. Tablet volunteered, printer fed, pumpkins revised. He adds knife, owner, will ask crew. He adds lock, stable. He doesn't write the part where the barn door felt warm to his palm for half a second when he closed it, like someone's hand had been there right ahead of his. He lets that stay where it happened. He takes the trash out. The bag bumps his leg with the weight of paper cups and cinnamon stick wrappers. Halfway to the dumpster, he hears what sounds like a child laughing far off, wrong direction for the road. It's the kind of laugh you get from a nightbird if you hear it on the wrong side of your head. He keeps walking. The bag lands in the bin with a hollow, plastic thud that feels bigger than it is. When he turns back, there are small, wet marks on the porch boards. Not footprints, not drips, just darker patches where something held on a second longer than it should. He bends down and touches one with 2 fingers. It isn't wet now. It just looks like wet, remembered wet. He stands slow and watches them fade as the boards equalize to the air. He locks the door earlier than he'd planned, not to leave, just to have the moment where the key turns and the world on one side holds the other in place. He breathes out through his nose and hears how loud it is in the quiet. That makes him smile for real. He's there. The store's there. The night is what it is. He goes to the truck and sits with the engine off, hands on the wheel like a person deciding about a drive he won't take. The heater fan makes a soft draft against his ankle, even though the switch is off. He doesn't test it, he just moves his foot, and the draft moves with him like a small animal that doesn't want trouble. Before he leaves, he writes one more line on the clipboard and dates it. Routine intact, a few things off. Check with owner in the morning. He underlines morning because daylight has a way of solving things that night only rehearses. On the way out, he rolls past the barn, slow enough to see his headlights skate across the door. For half a blink, the light catches the little counter inside through the side window, the spot where he'd left the knife. There's a thin line across that counter now, not a blade, just a scratch that shows raw wood under old varnish. Could have been there for years. His stomach makes a small decision he doesn't share with his head. He doesn't stop. He lets the driveway take him to the road. In the mirror, the porch light holds steady, like it's practicing being reliable. He decides to let it. He shows up early again, third night running. The frost hasn't lifted all day. Tire tracks stay white until noon. The owner left a note on the counter. Check the stock when you can, camera's fine, don't worry the frost. The handwriting drifts like it was done in a moving truck. He folds it once and tucks it under the mat, paper still warm from someone's hand. He starts with the barn. He tells himself it's to get it out of the way, but the truth is he wants to look before the dark builds weight. The air outside smells like iron, cold metal, and wet dirt. When he turns the padlock, the shackle sighs, the kind of sound you get from something waking reluctantly. Inside, the air is thick with hay dust. A slow beam of sunlight leaks through a knothole and cuts the gloom in half. He stands still until the dust settles, then walks the perimeter. The knife hasn't returned. He checks under the wagon again, though he already knows. Empty. He checks the floor, shelves, even the rafters where paper tags dangle. Everything ordinary looks a little deliberate tonight, like it knows he's watching. He tests the elevator switch. The motor coughs once and stops. He kills the breaker and waits, hand on the panel. Through the wall, he hears the pipes settle. It almost sounds like breathing through boards. He writes motor, short run. Okay, and draws a slow underline that looks more like hesitation than emphasis. Back in the store, he opens the register. Bills neat, drawer exact. He presses the power on the tablet out of habit, catches himself, leaves it dark. For a while, he wipes down the counter, checks the cooler. Normal rhythm, soft, domestic, safe. Then the landline clicks once, no ring, just the click. He lets it go. By 8:30, fog has rolled in so thick, the porch bulb turns the air milky. He opens the door a crack to watch it. It looks like the whole world decided to breathe slow. He's about to close it when something hits the window glass from outside. Light, maybe a moth, maybe gravel. He steps out with the flashlight. Nothing but a ring in the fog where his beam ends. He comes back in and counts pumpkins again. 19 and 19. The caved one is gone completely now. No rot, no mess, just missing. He circles the count twice and doesn't like how the pen point drags on the paper. Around 9, the tablet glows without touch. The screen shows a faint shadow moving across white background. Too large for a cursor, too slow for a glitch. He pulls the plug. It stays lit another 5 seconds before fading out on its own. He leaves it face down and walks to the door for air. Outside, the grain elevator coughs again, same timing, like it knows his schedule. He locks the front door behind him, an instinct, not a rule, and heads out. The fog parts around his flashlight beam like cloth. The barn door creaks when he opens it, metal stretching under cold. Inside, the air feels wet, almost warm. He hears the elevator wheel turning, faint but real. No power to it. He steps closer, keeping the beam low. The wheel stops when the light hits it. He moves the light away. It begins again, half a turn. He repeats the motion. Light on, still. Light off, move. He says softly, "That's enough," and hits the breaker for good measure. The wheel finishes one full turn, slower than any motor would run, then stops like it's listening for applause. He stays there too long. Long enough for his eyes to adjust and notice something written on the side of the wooden grain chute. A line carved shallow, maybe old. Carriage 23. Same word as on the void receipt. The numbers match the missing kit count. He presses his thumb over the groove. The wood feels warm. He steps back fast enough to bump the shovel rack. Metal hits floor, echoes up the roof. The noise clears his head. He forces a laugh that doesn't last. "Good," he says to the emptied room. "Now you've done something stupid. Go write it down." Back outside, the cold hits hard. He locks the door, this time turning the padlock sideways without thinking. The metal sticks a second, then gives. He writes 2124, lock secure, temp drop, and keeps walking until he's back in the yellow porch light. The printer on the counter is running again. Paper feeds, smooth and slow, no sound except the motor's hum. He tears it off, blank, except faint letters along the edge. Exit, 0 items. He flips the strip over, rubs it with his thumb. The text vanishes like fog wiped from glass. He slides it into his pocket with the others. He sits on the porch step and lets the cold work on him. The fog moves like slow traffic across the field. Every few seconds, a crow coughs somewhere beyond sight. He thinks about how every system he checks keeps waking up without permission. It doesn't feel haunted. It feels rehearsed. He drives home after 11, slower than usual. The road out of the valley curves along the creek. For a moment he sees headlights behind him in the mirror, 2 small white dots in the fog. He watches them stay the same distance no matter how he slows. When he turns off onto Miller Road, the dots fade, but not by distance. Just gone, like a switch, cut them. At home, he parks under the single street lamp and sits with the engine off, hands still on the wheel. The heater's off, yet the vents breathe a faint warm draft across his knuckles, the same way the barn air moved. He leaves the truck key halfway turned, enough for the dashlight to glow. The clock reads 12:03. He watches it skip to 12:04 without the second hand moving. He laughs once, because clocks should never join sides. He turns the key all the way and kills the light. When he finally goes inside, he writes himself one line on a scrap paper torn from a grocery list. If it happens again, bring someone. He folds it and slides it into his wallet behind his license. The note stays there for years. He wakes early the next morning without an alarm. The sky outside the window is white, no horizon, just light pressing on glass. His thermos sits by the sink where he left it. The metal looks bruised from frost. He pours the leftover coffee anyway, cold and bitter, and drinks half before he tastes it. He drives the back road in daylight for the first time in weeks. The fog's gone, traded for a glare that makes the fields look flat and fake, like someone ironed them. He passes the sign that reads Miller's Pumpkin and Hayride. Half the letters have slid down after years of rain. He slows near the barn, but he doesn't pull in yet. The owner's truck is there, tailgate open, radio playing a farm report too loud for the air. The owner waves him over. "Morning, Glenn," he says, like they didn't both pretend not to be nervous last night. He's holding a clipboard that isn't Glenn's. The papers flutter in the wind, corners damp. "Everything fine?" Glenn asks, trying to make it sound routine. "Mostly," the owner says. "One of the kids says the elevator started by itself. Scared him. Then stopped." He shrugs like that's small news. "Probably a short. You mind walking me through what you saw?" They go inside together. Daylight takes half the fear out of the place and leaves the rest. Dust stands still. The motor casing glints like clean metal, new looking against the old wall. The owner taps the wheel once. It doesn't move. "Could be residual power," the owner says. "Or maybe humidity tricked the motion sensor again. I'll have somebody look at it." Glenn nods and doesn't mention the carved words on the chute. He runs a hand over the spot anyway, quick, like checking temperature. The groove is there but faint, filled with grey dust now. Carriage, fine 23, still legible if you know to look. He almost asks if carriage ever meant anything in the old grain labels, but the question feels heavier than the answer would. They finish the round. No knife, no missing stop. The owner locks up and tells him to take the evening off if he wants. "We're closing after this weekend," he says. "No need to freeze for a few more pumpkins." Glenn says he'll come in anyway. Routine matters more than hours. The owner just nods, like that explains something he half understands. That evening, the sky goes grey before 5. The air smells like a storm that changed its mind. Glenn pulls in with the wipers off because the windshield keeps itself clear. Thin film of moisture never settling. He parks close to the porch. Inside, the store feels smaller. Most of the pumpkins are gone, stacked crates instead. He does the count out of habit. 15 total now. The caved one hasn't come back. He doesn't expect it to. He opens his logbook and reads last night's last line. "Bring someone." He traces the letters once with a fingernail and closes the book. At 7:10, the tablet wakes again. This time it doesn't freeze. It loads the sales menu and flashes a message. "Reconnect to device, Barncam 1. He doesn't remember reconnecting it before, but he taps yes anyway, because refusing feels like inviting something. The tablet blinks, then shows the barn feed. Dark interior, faint dust floating. He leans on the counter and watches, half curious, half tired. After a minute, the image jitters. Something passes across the frame, quick and close, like a sleeve brushing the lens. Then static. The display freezes on a single frame, the wagon, the wall behind it, and a faint, bright line on the floor curved like the letter C. He screenshots it without thinking, even though he's not sure how to find screenshots later. The act just makes it real for a second. He decides he should check. That's what people like him do, check. Outside, the wind's shifted. The temperature has climbed. His breath doesn't show. The fog's gone, replaced by air that feels alive under the skin. The barn door gives after one pull. Inside, the light he left off last night glows low, orange like sunset, even though the bulb is clear. He tries the switch. It doesn't change. The wagon sits where it always does. Nothing moves. He steps closer, counting paces. 6 steps from door to wagon wheel, 5 from wheel to chute. The floor feels tacky, like humidity turned to syrup. He lifts his boot and hears the sound peel away. He crouches by the chute and traces the carving again. The dust's gone from the groove. The word is cleaner now, fresh like the wood was cut again. Carriage 24. He stands too fast and hits his shoulder on the beam. He checks the clipboard in his hand. He's not sure why he brought it, but the paper shows a wet circle where his thumb rests. He wipes it and sees the number 24 printed faintly beneath, not written, printed like receipt ink. He turns the page. It's gone on the next sheet. He hears something light fall behind him. A seed scoop tipping over, maybe. When he turns, the door he came through is closed halfway. The light from the store porch cuts a triangle on the floor. He steps toward it, pushes, and the hinge makes the same sigh as the padlock used to. Outside again, the air feels clean, almost sweet. The porch bulb hums normal. He writes nothing in the logbook this time. He just stands by the truck, staring at his reflection in the windshield until it fogs, then clears, then fogs again, fogs. He drives home slower than usual, windows half down. The radio won't tune, only static that fades higher and lower like breathing. He leaves it on. At home, he sets the clipboard on the table and washes his hands twice. The smell of hay and cleaner still clings. He opens the notebook, planning to finish the nightly note, and finds the blank receipt strips tucked inside. They've bled through, the faint letters now darker, all the same phrase. Exit, 0 items. He flips them, one by one. Each strip shows a slightly different timestamp along the bottom, hours apart. The last one reads tomorrow's date. He folds the papers, slides them back in place, and shuts the book. He tells himself he'll throw them out in the morning. He knows he won't. The next day passes without call. He stays home, watches the frost melt off the truck roof, eats cereal dry from the box. Around 4, he gets restless and drives out anyway. The road feels longer in daylight, but the turns are the same. When he reaches the farm, no trucks, no porch light. Gate locked. He parks outside and walks the fence line. Through the slats he can see the barn door standing half open, chain hanging loose. The padlock's still there, snapped around air. He tells himself to call the owner, but the phone has no bars this close to the hill. He pockets it and leans on the fence rail. Inside the barn, something shifts the dust. Small motion, quick. Could be an animal, could be the draft. He waits for a face or a shadow, gets neither. He listens instead. What he hears sounds like the elevator wheel turning, slow and steady, one revolution every few seconds. The rhythm fits the sound of breathing if you don't argue with it. He stands there long enough for the air to burn his throat. Then he turns back to the truck and drives home without looking in the mirror. That night he wakes once at 2:11 a.m. The room is quiet except for the heater's low whine. He lies there, eyes open, watching the dark take shape. Dresser, curtain, the glow from the clock. The digits skip from 2:11 to 2:12 without counting seconds. He laughs under his breath. Some habits follow you home. He reaches for his phone on the nightstand. Screen lights up on the lock page. Notification bar shows Barn Cam 1 live. He doesn't open it. He sets the phone face down, same way he does the tablet. He breathes slow until the heater's rhythm starts to match his own. When he finally drifts, the last thing he thinks he hears is a belt catching, short and dry, somewhere deep in the walls. Morning comes clear again. The paper on the table looks harmless. Clipboard, pen, notes, stacked. He flips the top page once, finds a new line in his handwriting that he doesn't remember writing. 2117, knife returned, wrap on, stable. He reads it twice. The ink is his. The calm of the letters is his. He closes the book, presses the clip down, and leaves it that way. He goes out, starts the truck, and lets the heater run without checking if it's on. The air that comes through is cool, and that's enough. When he passes the farm gate, he doesn't slow down. The barn sits back from the road, blue siding dull under morning sun. The porch bulb is still on. It burns steady, colourless, same as before, like it's holding the count for him. He drives until the frost disappears from the mirror, and the sound of the motor becomes something normal again. He doesn't tell anyone what he wrote that night. Most people wouldn't believe it anyway. numbers that change, machines that breathe on their own. But stories like his have cousins. They live in offices, garages, waiting rooms, places with cameras, not candles. So let's move to another kind of night. Different job, same season. A man on patrol, not a farmhand this time. A security guard in an underground garage where everything is measured in reflections and echoes. The air feels familiar. Still fall, still quiet. Still the kind of shift where you count footsteps because they're supposed to be yours. Leon starts the new post in early November. The building's called Park 7, though there are only 6 levels underground. That kind of math doesn't bother him. It's the sort of lie office buildings tell to sound complete. His shift runs 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. 8 hours of white paint, concrete, and the smell of cars cooling. He's worked worse. Warehouses, a zoo after closing. Garages make sense to him. Engines come, engines go, everything else stays put. Daly from management walks him through once, talking faster than needed, the way people do when they'd rather not be in the place they're describing. Stay on patrol between B3 and B6, he says. Write your times. If something feels off, call it in. No hero stuff. Leon nods. That's fine, he doesn't plan on hero anything. By the time the elevator swallows Daly upstairs, the sound of the world folds down to a hum. The motion lights click and fade in slow rhythm. He likes that. It gives the night a heartbeat. He takes the first round, clipboard under one arm, flashlight low so the beam grazes the floor. Every step comes back at him in perfect echo, like someone else is matching him from half a second away. When the echo stops, that's when he'll worry. Each level has its smell. B3 smells like brake dust, B4 like old coffee, B5 carries coolant sharp enough to taste, B6 smells like nothing, and that's the worst kind. It's colder there, the air heavy enough to change how sound moves. He's halfway down the ramp when he hears a wet squeak. One, then another. He stops. The beam slides across concrete until it catches the shine. Bare footprints, human-sized, the kind you'd leave walking from a shower to tile. 5, maybe 6 of them, leading from the elevator toward the exit lane. He crouches. The prints are wet, but not fresh. The water feels cold enough to bite, metallic, as if it's carrying a little blood or rust. No dripping, no shoe prints leading in. Just those quiet shapes. He glances toward the camera dome above. Red light steady. No movement in the lens reflection. He exhales once. Slow. All right, he says, softly, like someone telling a room he's not surprised. He makes a small note on the clipboard. B6 ramp. Wet prints. Source unknown. That's all it needs. He follows the marks backward until they fade into dry concrete near the elevator. He steps inside, presses the lobby button. The doors close with that soft rubber sigh, and for a second he sees one wet print reflected on the brushed metal wall. Upside down, faint, like memory instead of moisture. Then it's gone. Back in the booth, he checks the monitors. All feeds steady except number 6, the same elevator view. That one stutters, freezes on static snow, then clears. The timestamp reads 10 minutes behind real time. The image shows the same floor he just mopped with his eyes. Clean, no prints. He frowns, rubs his thumb over the corner of the screen until the pixels blur back to grey. He decides the camera lagged. That's what he'll write later. He goes for another walk, slower this time, flashlight sweeping wider arcs. Nothing new. But when he reaches the vending machine on B4, the hum dips low, power sliding for a breath before returning. He smells ozone, like the air behind a storm. He looks up at the light tubes, one blinks 3 times, pauses, then stays on. He nods, half amused. Fine, talk in code, that's your right. When he returns to B6, the air feels heavier. The elevator doors stand open again, waiting. He steps close enough to see himself doubled in the metal, then hears a sound from behind the car. Slow drip, far back in the shaft. He angles the flashlight through the gap. The beam finds nothing but cables and the black gleam of water pooled below, no deeper than a shoe sole. He closes the door and lets it stay that way. On his way back up the ramp, he notices the concrete drying faster than it should. The footprints fade between blinks. He thinks about stopping to touch them again, decides not to. Some questions shrink if you let them. He makes one last note at the booth. Camera 6, lag possible moisture. Then he leaves the logbook open, pen across the top line, as if the paper might finish the sentence on its own. Before heading out, he kills the booth light and watches the monitor bank glow pale blue. Every screen shows still air and painted lines. Only the last one, bottom right, flickers once, a single white oval near the elevator, the shape of a bare heel starting to lift. He looks at it long enough to see it move, or maybe to imagine it. Then he powers the screens down and walks toward the lobby elevator, each step quiet, sure, ordinary. Outside, the street air hits warm on his face. The city hums around him like nothing underground ever happened. When he reaches the crosswalk, his boots leave small wet marks that fade before the next light turns green. The next night starts warm for November, fog sitting low, but the air thick enough to smell like rubber and wet leaves. Leon parks behind the delivery ramp instead of the main entrance. He tells himself it's closer to the booth, but really it's habit from years of shift work. Fewer eyes, fewer questions. The building hums the way it always does before people leave for the day. Elevators open and close, car doors slam, the concrete takes the sound and chews it down until it's the same grey as everything else. By 8:30, the day crew is gone. The last car climbs the ramp, tail lights bending around the turn, and then the motion lights flick once and fade. The quiet after that is clean enough to keep. Daly had left a note on the console. Maintenance will test sensors tonight, B5, B6. You may see camera resets, that's all it said. No initials, no time. Leon folds the paper and slips it under the keyboard like he's filing away an excuse. He starts the first loop slower than usual. Every corner looks ordinary. The vending machine on B4 finally gave up blinking. The air down by B6 feels less cold tonight, but he can still taste concrete dust when he breathes through his mouth. Near the elevator, he stops. The floor shows faint marks, not wet, just darker, the kind that appear when humidity changes. He kneels and feels the concrete. Dry. He lifts his hand and notices a faint outline of his palm printed darker against the floor, then fading while he watches. He wipes it away with his sleeve, leaves a clean patch shaped like disbelief. He opens the elevator and looks down the gap again. The pit is empty, cleaner than yesterday, as if someone drained it. He calls up the feed on his phone. Camera 6 shows the same view, crisp, new, timestamp, no lag. The picture makes the space look larger than it is, light sharpening corners that his eyes can't find in person. He pockets the phone, shuts the door, and takes the stairwell to B5 where the maintenance room lives. The key from Daly fits, though he doesn't remember being given one. Inside, 3 panels of switches, 2 coils of cable, 1 ladder leaning wrong side up, a toolbox open but empty. No dripping, no smell of bleach tonight, just the slow pulse of the ventilation fan turning behind the wall. He turns to leave and notices the floor drain. It's damp around the edges, darker ring like a shadow trapped in metal. He taps the grate with the flashlight. Hollow. Something moves beneath, maybe just air. He listens, counts 10 seconds, hears it again, a soft slap like water against concrete. He straightens and tells himself, Old pipe, nothing more. That's what he'll write later. He closes the door, the latch clicks too loud, echoing up the stairwell. Back on B6, the elevator doors stand open again. He swears he closed them. The light above the car shows the wrong floor number, B3. He steps forward and the doors shut before he reaches them, quick like a reflex. He stands there watching the panel lights climb, 4, 5, 6, then none. The indicator dies. He walks back toward the booth to check the feed. On the monitor, camera 6 shows the elevator doors still open. In the frame, a man stands half in, half out, back to the camera, bare-armed, head tilted down. The image jitters once, clears, and the space is empty again. He feels the heat crawl into his ears. He rewinds the feed 30 seconds, hits play. Empty car. Rewind again, same. He checks the timestamp, 21:23, same as now. He looks up toward the ramp, sees nothing but the curve of concrete. He says out loud, "If you're real, you can stay." It sounds foolish, but the air feels lighter once he's said it. He decides to stay in the booth longer. Routine keeps the mind from building ghosts. He writes a line. B6, camera glitch during maintenance test. Looks harmless enough. Harmless. At 10:20, he hears footsteps from the stairwell. Steady, human, not echoing right. He steps out, shines the flashlight up the flight. A worker appears, orange vest, ID tag swinging. "Evening," the man says. "Sensor check." Leon relaxes a little. "You with building maintenance?" "Yeah," the man says. "Just me tonight. We're checking leak reports." His voice is friendly but tired, the kind of tone used by people who've worked under fluorescent lights too long. Leon nods. "You'll want lower 6, had condensation yesterday." The man nods again and heads down. The soles of his boots squeak wetly with each step. Leon watches him go until the light from his flashlight disappears below the railing. He listens for the door, click at the bottom. It never comes. He waits a minute, maybe more, then follows. Each landing smells different. Paint, old coffee, coal dust. On B6, the air moves sideways, drawn by some fan he can't see. The door stands half open, his own reflection caught in its metal edge. He pushes it wide. The orange vest hangs on a pipe near the elevator. No man inside it. Flashlight lies on the ground, beam pointed straight at the drain cover in the center of the floor. Water circles slowly there, thin as breath. He crouches beside it. The water isn't deep, maybe an inch, but it moves like something underneath is breathing. He shines his light into the grate. The hole descends a few feet, then turns black. He thinks he sees a ripple and leans closer. A drop splashes his cheek, cold, not from below but from the ceiling. He looks up. A wet footprint sits overhead, reversed against the concrete like something stepped through from the other side. He stands so fast he hits the pipe. The flashlight slips, rolls through the puddle, and the beam dies. He grabs it, shakes water free, and backs toward the door. The drain makes a soft gulping sound, as if it's swallowing the last of the water, or air. He closes the door carefully, hand shaking only a little, and climbs 2 flights before stopping to breathe. On B4 he pulls his phone. The camera app shows the live feed from B6 again, though he didn't open it. The frame is tilted, maybe because the camera's loose. The orange vest is gone. The drain sits still, dry. He keeps walking. Upstairs, the night clerk asks if he needs anything. Leon says, "Just checking coverage." His voice sounds normal to his own ears, which feels like a small miracle. He signs his break sheet, pockets the pen, and heads back down. He doesn't mean to. It's like gravity from habit. On the way, he hums an old song his mother liked, something to keep timing. When he reaches B6 again, the air smells of fresh paint and rain, though neither exists down here. The vest is back on the pipe, dry now, flashlight clipped to it as if nothing happened. The drain looks untouched. He crouches anyway. Concrete, bone dry. He touches it. The heat from his skin leaves a faint print that cools immediately. He stays crouched there longer than he needs to, eyes closed, trying to find something ordinary in the silence. Behind him, the elevator dings once. He stands, slowly turns. Doors open, empty car. Inside, water beads on the floor in neat ovals, the shape of feet walking in. He steps close enough to see the pattern continue to the back wall, but no puddle forms, no drip falls. He steps inside. The air turns cold enough to ache in his teeth. He presses L for lobby. The car starts up, smooth, mechanical, innocent. He watches the numbers blink, B5, B4, B3. The lights in the car flicker once between floors. When they steady again, there's a wet print beside his own shoe. Small, perfect, drying fast. He rides the car all the way to the top, doors opening on the empty lobby. He steps out, looks down, and sees the same print mirrored on the marble. Not water, condensation from cold air. It fades as he watches. He signs off at 4 on the dot. On his way out, he tells the desk, "Sensor test went fine, no leaks." The clerk nods, half awake. Outside, dawn glows faint behind the skyline. He crosses to the train stop, turns back once. Through the glass doors of Park 7, he can see the elevator panel light blinking, cooling itself down. When the train arrives, the metal doors slide open with a hiss that sounds too familiar. Same pitch, same breath as the ones below ground. He gets in anyway. The floor under his boots gives a faint wet squeak and then forgets it ever happened. By noon the next day, the sun has burned through what's left of the fog. Leon hasn't slept. The TV hums in his apartment, sound turned down to a low drone, the kind that keeps thoughts from circling back. Every time he closes his eyes, he hears the soft squeak the elevator made when it shouldn't have moved. He gives up, showers, shaves, and puts on the same uniform. He tells himself he's just going to pick up a check, maybe sign a maintenance form. He already knows he'll end up walking the levels again. When he reaches Park 7, the daytime guard, older guy, greybeard, nods to him. "They've been looking for you," he says. "Maintenance wants to show you something." Leon laughs softly, like he doesn't mind. That sentence never ends well. Daly waits near the service desk. He looks tired too, but a different kind of tired. The kind that comes from trying to make something official. "Got a second?" he asks. "We reviewed some footage from last night." They step into the small control room. It smells like dust, old coffee, and static. 4 monitors glow on the wall. Daly plays the first clip. Camera 6, B6 elevator corridor. Timestamp 21:23. The image jitters once, clears. The elevator doors stand open. Then, without any transition, there's a blur near the floor, as if the lens blinked. A shape moves left to right, low to the ground, almost transparent. The feed jumps 2 seconds forward. The doors close. Daly freezes the frame. "Motion sensor triggered 3 times in under a minute," he says. "But there's no temperature spike, no light change." "You were there then?" Leon nods. "I didn't see anyone." Daly frowns at the screen. "We thought maybe reflection from your flashlight." "I wasn't using it," Leon says. "I was writing." They watch another clip. Same camera, 23:10. The elevator opens, empty. The floor glistens, dark ovals in a line, 6 of them, then gone again on the next frame. The water doesn't smear, it vanishes. "Condensation," Daly offers. "Maybe," Leon says. He leans closer, notices the way each footprint ends mid-step, like the person walked into air. "Maybe not." Daly sighs, rubs his forehead. Look, the building's closing next month for renovation. We just need things quiet until then. Don't mention this to tenants, yeah? Wasn't planning to, Leon says. He smiles, small, professional, but his stomach feels like cold metal. He stays after the meeting, alone with the screens. The other guards go to lunch. The monitor for camera 6 still plays live. The corridor looks peaceful, nothing moving but the flicker of the fluorescent tubes. Then faintly, the elevator doors open. A grey haze drifts out, dust or light or something between. It moves to the middle of the frame, pauses, and folds back toward the car. The doors close. The timestamp rolls on without skipping. Leon exhales through his teeth. He checks the sensor log. No alert recorded. The building didn't notice its own breath. He turns the screens off and decides to walk it himself. In daylight, B6 looks smaller. The concrete walls show their stains, the kind you stop seeing after a while. A painter on scaffolding rolls white over the numbered columns, whistling off-key. He nods when Leon passes. At the elevator, the air carries a damp chill that doesn't belong to noon. He steps inside the car, looks up at the light panel. There's a faint water ring around one bulb. He runs his thumb across it. His skin comes away dry. He rides to the lobby. The ride feels longer than 6 floors. When the doors open, a pair of engineers wait with a laptop and an infrared scanner. One smiles quick, polite. "You're the night guy, right? Mind sticking around while we run a test?" He shrugs. Sure. They start the elevator back down empty, sensors on. The laptop beeps every few seconds, plotting temperature. The readout line stays flat until the car reaches B6, then dips, cold spike. Probably airflow from the shaft, one mutters. He sounds unconvinced. The other glances at Leon. "You notice anything unusual last night?" "Just the prints," Leon says. They exchange a look, but don't comment. The doors open again. The air inside the car steams slightly in the cold. The scanner picks up another dip. One engineer wipes his lens, tries again. Same result. Leon looks at the floor. No prints. Yet when he breathes, his own fog shows low, not near his face, like the temperature is inverted. He steps out. The fog stays a second too long before it dissolves. The engineers pack up, promising a report. When they're gone, the floor dries back to perfect grey, as if someone wiped it clean in one stroke. He clocks in again that night, even though he could have taken it off. Daly doesn't question it. Maybe he's glad someone still shows up. The garage feels different after the daytime noise. The silence has edges now. The air smells faintly of chlorine, as if someone tried to wash the air itself. At 9, the elevator moves without call. He hears the cables hum, the motor wind, the ding echo across concrete. Doors open on B6, close, open again. He watches from the ramp, keeping distance. The light inside the car flickers once, revealing damp ovals on the floor. He counts 4 before the doors close. When they open again, the floor's dry. He walks closer, slow, steady. He looks at the call button. A single bead of water clings to the plastic, thick as syrup. He touches it with his thumb and feels cold pass through his nail into bone. He wipes it on his sleeve and looks at the smear it leaves, clear, odorless, impossible to explain. He steps inside the elevator. The air feels heavy like underwater quiet. He presses L for lobby. The motor starts, climbs 1 floor, then stops. The indicator light dies. The doors stay shut. The silence is dense enough to have weight. He presses open. Nothing. He presses B5. The car jerks, descends instead of rises. He hits stop. The button sticks, then releases. The car slows, settles, doors part. He expects to see the same floor. Instead, the wall ahead is unpainted concrete, no markings, no columns. The lights overhead glow amber, old bulbs that belong to another decade. He steps 1 foot out, hears the drip of water. The space looks like B6 before renovation, pipes bare, paint half gone. He recognizes the same drain cover in the floor, but the rest is wrong. The far wall curves, the ceiling lower, air thick with metal and mold. He calls out, "Hello?" The word flattens, no echo. He takes 1 more step. The door behind him slides halfway shut. He turns fast, jams the edge with his boot, forces it open. The lights flicker, switch from amber to white. The concrete corrects itself, back to clean grey, numbered pillar. The drain cover, dry. He backs into the car, breath coming fast. The doors close. The indicator jumps from B6 to L in 1 leap. The doors open on the lobby, everything normal. Clerk at desk, fluorescent hum, air freshener smell. "You good?" the clerk asks. Leon nods. "Elevator's fine." His voice cracks on the fine. He signs the sheet, pockets the pen, and steps outside into air that smells real. Rain has started, thin and cold. He watches the droplets darken the pavement until they match the shade of those prints underground. He looks at his reflection in the glass door before leaving. His hair's damp, though it wasn't when he came up. He wipes it once, and his hand comes away smelling faintly of iron. Later that night, sitting in his car with the wipers off, he opens the phone app again. The screen glows blue in the dark. Camera 6 feed, empty corridor. Then a flicker, 2 shapes crossing the frame, left to right, bare feet pale against concrete. They stop at the elevator, wait, and vanish when the doors slide open. He presses pause, rewinds, plays again. The timestamp reads now. He looks up through the windshield toward the ramp entrance. Light from the street spills down into the first level of the garage. Everything looks ordinary, maybe too much so. He sets the phone face down on the seat, engine still off. The car rocks once in a gust of wind, like a breath from below. He waits until it passes, starts the engine, and drives home through the rain. Steady, slow, not looking in the mirror. Leon sleeps through noon and wakes into the kind of afternoon that feels like a room with the lights on and nobody home. The radiator ticks in the wall. His uniform hangs from the chair by the window, cuffs still damp along the seams like they learned a habit. He eats standing up, toast, coffee, and stares at his phone on the counter like it could decide the night for him. No new texts. 1 email from payroll. A weather alert, rain tapering by evening, fog possible in low areas. He laughs once because the city thinks the garage is a low area and he doesn't disagree. He tells himself he could call out, stomach bug or car trouble, the kind of lie that keeps things smooth. Instead, he threads his belt, checks his flashlight, pockets 2 spare batteries, and leaves the apartment while the light still has color in it. Park 7 looks ordinary under the grey. A jogger crosses in front of the glass doors. The lobby security plant leans a little like it's listening to everyone who walks past. Inside, the day clerk signs off and the evening guy signs in. Same pen, same box on the sheet, like nothing has ever happened here in any direction. Daly steps out of the office with a folded paper. "Quick thing," he says, handing it over. It's a notice. Renovation prep begins next week. B6 temporarily closed after 10 p.m. Use B5 overflow. Below that, in small print, do not report sensor anomalies to tenants. Route to management. He waits for Leon to object. Leon doesn't. It would be the wrong kind of noise. He takes the elevator alone. It gives a soft hiss like somebody shushing a room. He rides to B5 first because saying you won't go to B6 is a way of going there anyway. He walks the rows, breath fogging a little, the air taking on that metallic sweetness he's starting to associate with a place that wants to hold water, but can't. The vending machine light behaves tonight. The candy sits where it always sits, half a spiral from falling. When he drops to B6, the doors open on a still picture. No sound except the fan somewhere far off. The cold isn't a drop so much as a decision. He steps out. The concrete looks clean enough to eat from. The drain in the center of the floor is a black mouth that decided to keep quiet. He stands in the doorway for a minute, letting his eyes pretend distance is safety. Then he walks the rectangle, past the elevator, past the stairwell, past the old seam where the cinder block meets newer wall. He listens the way you do when you're not sure if you're listening for a sound or for someone to answer. Nothing answers. He opens the elevator and lets it breathe. The light inside casts a pale halo on the floor. No prints, no wet. He rides it up one level just to break whatever pattern the night wants to set, and comes down again without stepping out. The doors open on the same quiet. He decides to sit in the booth for a while. The monitors glow with their blue aquarium light. Camera 6 looks like a screensaver made of dust. He watches until the corners of the screen flicker in the way cheap LCDs do, which is a human problem, and that calms him. He takes a blank strip of paper from the printer and writes 3 words: "Stay with breathing." He tucks it under the keyboard. It's not a log, it's a sentence you tell yourself when the air gets an opinion. Around 10, the building slips a gear. Elevator dings multiply, a car door sticks and slaps, and somewhere 2 levels up, a horn chirps itself awake and goes back to sleep embarrassed. Through it, the corridor at B6 holds its pose. Leon watches the live feed until his attention starts to float. That happens on long nights. The brain turns the screen into rain. When he finally stands, it is not because he heard anything, it's because something in his legs wants the walk. He takes the stairwell this time to keep the elevator from thinking it's been invited. B6 smells like the hour between laundry and rain. He steps out and feels the air move over his sleeves, a slow draft without a direction. He shines the beam low, careful not to try too hard. Light that looks for a thing can make a thing up. The concrete still holds to dry. He's halfway to the drain when he sees it. Not a footprint, not something dramatic. Just the call button on the elevator with a single bead of water clinging to the lower edge, thick as glass. It swells a fraction and shivers without falling, like it is learning how to be a drop in a place that doesn't do that. He presses his thumb to it and takes the cold into his nail bed because he can. Not tonight, he says, but the words are gentler now, as if he's telling someone tired they can go home. He walks the rest of the rectangle and ends where he started, at the doors. He steps into the car and makes himself ride to the lobby. It stops clean. It opens on a man in a winter hat with a pizza box, startled to find anyone on the way up from nowhere. Leon steps past him and nods. The lobby air throws ordinary into his face. Coffee, floor polish, a television in a back office repeating headlines that were old an hour ago. He stands there long enough for the elevator to forget him and shut. "Everything good?" the clerk asks without interest. "Good enough," he says, and the phrase fits the night. He goes back down because that's the job. His boots find the same rhythm the concrete gives him back. B5 is warmer, and that warmth goes nowhere. B6 is itself. If there's a story here, it's a short one. A place wanted to be wet where it should be dry, and a person who watches places for a living noticed. He takes his break at 1:30 in the morning because routine is a leash you put on anxious thoughts. He sits in his car with the engine off and listens to a weather report repeat itself. When he looks at the windshield, the fog is on the inside, a faint oval right where a breath would be if he weren't alone. He wipes it with his sleeve. It clears and then remembers itself faintly, as if glass can hold a suggestion. He goes back in. At 2:15, the live feed shows a wrong light. Not flashing, not failing, just warmer, like someone replaced a bulb in that one corridor with the old kind you used to see in basements when you were 6. He watches it sharpen, then flatten back to normal, like a memory that almost made it all the way through. He doesn't run to see it. He lets the screen be a screen. He writes one line because he wants to leave the night something polite. B6, steady. Anomaly did not persist. He feels silly, then less so. Politeness is a way of not naming fear. Near 3 a.m., a small parade of ordinary things makes the room human again. Cleaner wheels somewhere above, a door closing twice, a distant laugh that doesn't belong to this building at all, drifting in from the street. The garage accepts each sound and makes them new. That's what concrete and air do. They translate. He decides how to end. Not the night, just this story he's having with the place. He takes the stairwell down one last time and does the slowest possible pass. Along the marked spaces, around the pillar, where the paint always flakes in the same shape, past the seam. He runs his fingers along that seam and feels a heat that could be nothing, or could be the building's idea of a pulse. At the drain, he crouches and listens, not for a sound, but for the absence of one. He gets it. The kind of quiet that isn't empty, the kind that is you and a room deciding to share it. He stands. He says, "I'm leaving now," in a voice that would not scare a cat. The elevator dings once in what might be coincidence. He walks to it but doesn't get in. He presses open, watches the doors swing out and wait, then presses close and leaves them that way, like a parent pulling a blanket up to someone who wanted one and didn't know to ask. He signs out at 4, the pen catching for a second on the loop of his last name. He hands the sheet to the clerk. "Any issues?" the clerk asks out of habit. "Just the usual," Leon says, which is the truth he uses when 2 truths would be too many. Outside, the street is a darker grey, finally learning how to be morning. The air smells like rain pretending to be finished. He crosses to the train stop. In the glass of the shelter, he gets his reflection twice, a faint echo of a person carrying an empty thermos and a folded notice. For a second, the second reflection fogs a small breath where his mouth isn't. Then a bus roars past and takes the trick with it. On the train, he sits by the door and watches the city fold and unfold along its seams. A woman in a scarf nods off, waking every time the car slows. A kid plays a game on his phone with the sound off, thumbs moving fast as thought. The world is ordinary enough to keep. He steps off 2 stops early for the walk. The sidewalks smell clean, like stone rinsed and set back on its shelf. When he reaches his building, his key sticks for the first time in months. The door has swollen from yesterday's rain. In the hall, a neighbour's dryer thumps a rhythm that sounds like a person learning to climb stairs. His own door opens to the same radiator tick, to a room that only gets haunted when you let it. He sets the notice on the table and the thermos in the sink. He takes his boots off by the mat and looks at the floor around them. No wet, no prints. There is, for a moment, a pair of faint ovals on the linoleum. Heat, not water, where his feet were 2 beats before. He watches them fade into the pattern like everything else. Before he sleeps, he writes one line on a paper that isn't a report. Garage will close B6 at 10 p.m. The rest of it will close itself. He leaves the paper on the table and turns the light out. The room takes a second to belong to him again. That second is all right. He dreams the elevator ding only once. In the dream, nobody gets on. It goes where it goes, carrying air and the idea of wet feet to the floor that will always be ready for them. Morning will file that dream where mornings file everything. Not solved, not broken, just put away. When he wakes 3 hours later, the phone glows on the nightstand. A single notification waits. Camera 6, no signal. He smiles without humor and turns it face down. Some stories end quiet, not because they ran out of things to say, but because they finally learned his pace. He makes coffee. He stands at the window while the radiator counts. The city starts talking to itself again. He finishes his cup and leaves the mug in the sink to soak. By the time he's ready for the next shift, the cup will look new, and the garage will have decided what it wants to be tonight, without him telling it how. He never went back to Park 7 after the cameras went dark. Some places just decide they're finished being watched, and you learn to leave them that way. But nights like his don't stay put, they travel. This next one starts miles away. Open sky instead of ceiling, gravel instead of concrete. A 2-lane highway that runs too straight for too long, the kind where fog can hide an entire car between mile markers. It's fall again, the kind of season where engines cool faster than they should and headlights look lonely on their own. A man pulls over for a nap and wakes up to find the world idling without him. Same quiet. Same rule-breaking logic. Different kind of dark. He leaves the late shift just after 9, 2 counties west of where the radio says the storm might reach. The road he takes home isn't a highway exactly. 2 lanes, long straight runs, then a bend where the tree line learns to be fence. It's November, the kind where the stars look close and wrong, like bright thumbtacks pressed into a map nobody uses anymore. He drives with the window cracked for air. The cab smells like coffee that sat too long and the rubber of his floor mats. Every few miles a farmhouse sets out a single porch light, warm as a held match. Between those lights, the dark resets. He tells himself he'll make the hour without stopping. Then the yawn hits, the long, soft kind that isn't a choice. He blinks slow and knows the trick too well. A person who argues with sleep while moving at 60 becomes a story other people tell. He takes the next turn out, a gravel pull-off where trucks sometimes sit nose in, engines ticking down in the cold. It's quiet there. The only motion is the red eye of a radio tower far off, rising and falling as if it were breathing for the whole field. He leaves the engine on to keep the heat, then decides not to waste gas and turns the key back. The silence comes up like water. He leans the seat a click, knots his jacket into a pillow, and closes his eyes with that small promise he's made since he was a teenager. 10 minutes, not more. He wakes to his own name, soft, like someone standing just outside the glass and being careful. He sits up fast enough to make the belt bite his shoulder, heart beating against the idea of that voice. The windshield is milky with breath. He wipes a circle clear and looks out. Nothing moves. The red tower winks. The road holds its line, but there's a car down the pull-off now, 20 yards ahead, angled toward the ditch like it glided to a stop and changed its mind mid-air. Older sedan, dark color, headlights off, no cabin light, no driver shadow. He waits for the brake lights to dim, and they don't because they were never on. He checks his phone for time, 9:47, and for signal. One grey bar that can't decide. For a moment he thinks about pulling alongside to ask if they're all right. Then he catches the posture of the other car and knows the truth. People who drive at night learn. Sometimes the kind thing is to let a person be alone in the way they've chosen. He tips his head back again. The nap didn't stick, but his body still wants the quiet. He drifts without meaning to. The red light on the tower runs its slow pulse. Gravel pops under his cooling tires. Somewhere, a frog tries one last autumn sound and gives up halfway through. He wakes a second time to cold air on his face. The window is down an inch more than he left it. He doesn't remember moving the switch. He doesn't say anything. He just rolls it up and listens. The engine is off. He can feel the difference in the steering column, the squeak, the way it no longer has a hum. He hadn't turned the key back on. He looks for the other car. It isn't there. The gravel where its tires sat shows one clean pair of arcs nosed toward the ditch, and then nothing. No return marks, no backing out, no scatter. He breathes once, slow. He tells himself he was more asleep than he thought. That happens. People dream cars the way they dream stairwells. A place the body wants to keep moving. He turns the key to accessory. The dash lights up polite and green. The clock says 9:47 again. He laughs once, because clocks stick. He turns the key the rest of the way. The starter spins bright, sure, then throws a small dry whine as if fingers slipped on metal. He lets it rest. The second try catches. The engine settles into that low, winter idle a person trusts. He puts the car in drive and eases toward the road. Before his front tires touch pavement, a shape slips into the edge of the headlights. A trunk, a bumper, glass. The same older sedan is back, parked where it was before, now with its hood turned a degree more toward the ditch, like it listened when the earth asked. He stops with his wheels still on gravel. He doesn't want to share road with a car that appears between blinks. He eases into park and watches. No cabin light. No frost line where a mouth would fog the glass. The windshield on the other car is dry, flat, as if the air on that side of the night forgot breath. He takes the flashlight from the glove box and steps out. The cold finds his teeth. Gravel shifts under his boots with the slow, forgiving sound that means no one has been here for hours. He walks up the side of the other car and looks in without cupping the beam to the glass, because that's a habit of people who don't want to scare themselves. The seats are empty, back seat too, no coat thrown across, no fast food bag, no cup in a holder. The steering wheel is straight and clean. The key slot shows nothing. He touches the hood with his knuckles, cold. Not late evening cool, deep cold like metal that has learned the temperature of the ditch and decided it. He circles the trunk, which wears a thin pollen of dust you see in fall, where combines run miles away. The dust holds a single finger line, curved, not a word, not a letter, just the kind of mark someone makes when they want to touch a thing that looks exactly like itself. He sets his own fingers alongside, not over it, and feels nothing but the smooth. He stands there longer than he means to, listening for the noise a rest area makes when it thinks it's alone. A far fence wire singing, stubble in a field clicking against itself, the wind in the mouth of a bottle left in a ditch. The pull-off gives him all three in the kind of order that feels like a friend counting with you. "Okay," he says, because people say that to rooms. He walks back to his car. He gets in. He doesn't look in the mirror because he doesn't want to see what a mirror does with a person who's thinking too hard. He puts the car into reverse, eases away from the angle where the other car sits, and noses back onto the two-lane. The road takes him like it was waiting. He passes a mailbox with a number he doesn't read, a reflector that leans and then decides not to fall. The radio tries to catch a station and catches three at once, weather from somewhere coastal, a preacher telling a kind story in a stern voice, a song he knows from 10 years ago. He turns the volume down to a breath, and lets the voices fold into the tires. He glances at the odometer for no reason other than hands like numbers. It rolls to a new mile, and he imagines the little gears hidden behind the panel all turning together like a choir. He blinks slow and resets the promise. He won't stop again for 20 minutes. He can do 20 minutes. He passes a sign that says Mile 118 in green and white. He doesn't say it out loud, but he feels better for knowing a number that exists under other people's headlights too. 10 minutes later, the road pulls to a crooked left and then straightens hard like it remembered the county line. The field on his right opens into a low basin where Fog prefers to live. He sees the pull-off too late to talk himself out of it. The same gravel bite, the same sparse weeds, the same red tower light winking from the far margin, like the heartbeat that refuses to speed up for anyone. He brakes without a sound. His tires find the rut his tires made earlier. He feels the match in his hands before he knows why. He pulls in to the same depth he swears he didn't decide. The older sedan is already there, not 20 yards now, but maybe 15, angled a hair closer to the ditch. He says the word no once, gently, like he's telling a child the kitchen is closed. He sits with the engine on this time. He makes himself do that. He watches the other car in the way people watch horizon lines, not with hard eyes, but with long ones. The fog in the basin tries the pull-off edge and curls back, shy. He reaches for the key to make sure it's still where keys belong, and it is. He waits for the second thing to happen because night never arrives with just one. A coyote yips far off. A second voice answers closer. The tower light keeps its pulse. The other car does nothing that a car should not do, which is its own kind of doing. He leans forward and catches his reflection in his own windshield, one face inside a colder room. He draws a small arc in the fog on the glass with his thumbnail and watches it clear. The same motion is missing on the other windshield. No arc. No breath. Just that perfect dry pain that makes him think of found pictures of wrecks people walked away from without a coat. He could leave. He knows that. He also knows the kind of person he is, the kind who needs to be sure the thing isn't a person sleeping hungry and alone. He puts his hazards on so the road knows he's not a deer. He steps out again, keeps the flashlight low on his thigh, doesn't point it straight at anything alive or dead. He calls out, "You okay?" in the tone that doesn't promise help, so much as offer company. The sound folds back to him, easy as a sheet settling on a bed. He steps closer and stops because he needs to test the world. He lifts his hand and waits. Wind moves across his knuckles like a cat that can't decide whether to admit knowing you. He takes one step more. The dust on the trunk lifts in a small ghost and then falls, not disturbed by him, but by the kind of air a car breathes when it's cooling. Except this car isn't cooling, it's already cold. He checks the license plate out of a habit you get when you've been pulled over before. The numbers 8 and 1 sit side by side, then a pair of letters that make no word, then a 7. He says them in his head to prove he can. When he looks back a breath later, the plate is just the plate again. He couldn't tell you a single symbol if you paid him. The ground by the driver door shows nothing. No mud where a heel would drag, no scuff in the gravel that reads like panic or hurry. The seat rail where people always drop pennies is clean. He thinks about knocking. He doesn't. The knuckles know better than the mind does. He returns to his own car because cars are better at recognizing their owners than people are. When he sits, the seat gives back the shape it took from him earlier, and the heater remembers the last number he asked. He pulls out to the road. The tires find the same line. The mile marker that used to comfort him arrives on cue. Mile 118 again, same dent in the signpost, same sticker peeling from the back like a fish scale. He tells himself lots of roads reuse numbers. He tells himself the basins all look the same when fog is the landlord. He tells himself the red tower lights share a blood. All those sentences are true enough to live with. They are not true enough to stop him glancing at the clock. It still says 9:47. He taps the glass over the dash like it will jog time. The needle for the temperature sits slightly left of center, exactly where a healthy engine idles. He places 2 fingers on the vent. Warm air moves over them the way quiet insists on staying. When he pulls his hand away, the pads of his fingers feel wet. He smells them without lifting them to his face. The scent is nothing. The sensation is winter. He drives on. He promises himself 10 miles. He promises himself he will not count them. He fails both promises gently, the way a person fails at something. They will try again in the morning. The road keeps accepting him. The night keeps offering the same bargain it offers everyone who drives alone. You may pass if you listen. He says yes. That yes is the only sound he makes for a long time. Near the next bend, he sees tail lights far ahead, a pair that sits too low and too still, like the car is already parked. He tells himself they belong to someone checking a map. He tells himself maps are honest in daylight. He tells himself he is tired, and that's allowed. He doesn't tell himself the thing that climbs the back of his neck when the lights don't blink or flare or move. He doesn't have to. The road knows. It moves him toward the pull-off that will be there when he arrives. No closer, no farther, as if distance obeys the same rule the clock does. He turns the radio off and lets the tires speak in their small, patient language. The sound keeps him in the world the way holding a balustrade keeps a person on the stairs. He will stop one more time. He will look. He will do it with the engine running. If there is a person there, he will ask their name. If there isn't, he will learn what kind of quiet can park a car without help. He reaches for the hazard switch so the night will see him coming. The click feels steadier than his breath. That is a good sign. He tells himself so. He believes himself for now. The flashes tick a slow orange heartbeat against the fog. The road folds away from him in long grey fabric. Each blink shows the ditch, then takes it back. He keeps one hand on the wheel, the other ready on the gear shift, as if balance was something a person could hold between fingers. The closer he gets, the clearer the shape. A sedan again, same outline, same low roofline, same way the rear glass leans forward instead of back. The taillights burn steady but faint, like bulbs running on leftover memory. No license plate reflection, no chrome glint. He rolls to a crawl, 40 feet, 30, 20. The red light paints the mist behind it and nothing else. He touches the horn just once. The sound goes out clean, comes back wrong, shorter, like it hit something soft. He stops, puts the car in park. The hazard tick slows in his head until it sounds like counting. He kills the engine, but leaves the lights. The silence steps forward fast. "Hey," he says out the window. "You all right?" The air soaks the words like cloth. Nothing moves. He opens his door, boots on gravel again, the smell of wet weeds rising from the ditch. His flashlight beam walks across the red shine of the other car's trunk. Dust turns to glitter and back. The plate reads nothing he can catch, letters, numbers, gone before they settle. He moves toward the driver's side. The door window's half down now, though frost rings its edge like a silver frame. He bends to look in. The seat is empty. The passenger seat holds a folded flannel shirt, sleeves crossed, the way people leave things for later. On the floor, a thermos lies on its side. No label, no dent, no condensation, just clean metal waiting for a hand. He knocks lightly on the roof. Hollow. Colder than it should be. He shines the light on the hood. The paint catches nothing. Not dew, not breath. A car that doesn't take temperature is a car that belongs to no time. He backs away until both vehicles fit in one picture, his still pulsing amber, the other still red. The two rhythms make a slow argument in the dark. He decides to call someone, highway patrol maybe, just to say a vehicle's abandoned. He pulls his phone, raises it to eye height to find a bar of service. One bar blinks, dies, returns, dies. Then a text alert slides across the screen. Emergency location activated, 9:47 p.m. He stares at it. The timestamp makes him laugh once, short and dry. When he looks back at the sedan, the lights are out. Both. No glow, no shadow. The fog between them hangs like wet silk, showing where the light used to be. He says aloud, softly, "Okay." It's not fear, it's procedure, the same tone people use when they find a drawer already open and just decide to close it. He gets back in his own car, starts the engine, leaves the hazards off this time. The radio wakes mid-song, a voice stretched through static, singing words he half knows, mile after mile, the same slow turn. He leaves it playing low. He eases forward, glances once in the mirror. The place where the sedan stood now shows a pair of faint, wet lines crossing the gravel, then fading as the rear beam slides over them. Like tire marks drawn on fog instead of ground. A few miles later, he finds a gas station still open, light spilling across a patch of cracked asphalt. Inside, a man in a denim jacket cleans the counter with the end of a newspaper. The TV above him shows weather maps without sound. Leon, he never says his name to the man, but he still thinks of himself that way, fills a styrofoam cup with black coffee and drinks half before it stops steaming. He asks, "You seen anyone pulled off down by the Tower Road?" The clerk shrugs. "You mean the old broadcast spur? Nobody parks there much, it floods." "When?" "Every fall, sometimes spring. The ground breathes water." He smiles without teeth. "Why?" "Just saw a car, looked broke down. Probably county tow by morning." The clerk wipes the same spot again. Happens. Leon thanks him and leaves a 5 on the counter. Outside, the air tastes of fuel and rain. He stands under the overhang long enough for the coffee to cool and the cup to bend in his hand. The road beyond the pumps stretches black and narrow, heading the same direction he needs to go, which feels like a coin toss between sense and invitation. He drives again because stopping twice in one night feels like agreeing to something. The fog thickens near the low basin. The red tower light appears sooner than it should, beating through the mist like a pulse that moved closer. He tells himself he'll stay on the road this time. No pull-off, no looking. Just pass. When he reaches the mile marker, the steering wheel shakes once, a tremor from rough pavement. He tightens his grip, looks straight ahead. The beam of his headlight sweeps the shoulder and shows the same gravel mouth, the same weeds bending away from the road. He keeps his foot on the gas. Then the radio cuts out. The silence inside the car feels exact, like the air's been measured. The headlights dim, brighten, dim again. The speedometer needle flicks down to 0, jumps back to 60. The engine keeps running but sounds far away, like it's working through glass. He coasts until he's past the basin, heart steady, eyes on the white line. In the rearview mirror, 2 red lights bloom in the fog where the pull-off used to be. They don't blink, they don't fade. They sit at his back like patients. He drives 10 more miles before the lights finally disappear behind a curve. When they do, the radio hums alive again, mid-sentence, a news voice saying, "Investigators still unable to confirm the make of the vehicle." He turns the volume down to nothing. Half an hour later, he stops at a rest area. Real pavement, vending machines humming, a semi-idling 2 rows over. He parks under a lamp that tries its best. The light looks solid after so much fog. He gets out, walks to the trash can, throws the coffee cup away. A map on the wall shows the highway as a thin blue line winding between counties, all those miles pretending to be unique. He traces the stretch he just drove. There's no pull-off marked, no radio tower symbol, no service road. A trucker steps out of the restroom, nods at him. Rough night for visibility.
Yeah, Leon says. Keeps changing. The trucker chuckles. This state loves its ground fog. Whole thing sits on old lake beds. You hit a spot just right, you can feel the cold breathe up through the tires. Leon nods, too tired to disagree. He glances toward his car. Its headlights reflect on the metal sign beside the vending machines. The reflection isn't two perfect circles like it should be. One looks lower, tilted toward the ditch that doesn't exist here. He blinks and the shape corrects. He says goodnight to the trucker and gets back behind the wheel. The engine starts clean. The clock reads 10:12 p.m. The radio stays quiet. He drives back onto the highway with both hands steady and the heater set to low. For a few miles the world behaves. The road shoulders gleam with rainwater. The sky above stays clear enough to hold 3 visible stars. Then without warning, the headlights skim a new sign. White, reflective, fresh paint, mile 118. He doesn't slow, he doesn't smile. He just nods once, like greeting an old co-worker you'd rather not talk to. The radio flickers again. Same voice as before, soft and clipped. Authorities say the vehicle appeared to have been abandoned for several days before the first call at 9:47 p.m. He presses the power knob until the sound dies. The fog returns one thin layer at a time until the car feels like it's swimming. The wipers drag across a dry windshield. The temperature gauge drops a hair toward blue. He turns the defrost on. Warm air fills the cabin, sweet with engine smell, and the glass clears. For a while, he believes that might be the end of it. Then, in the corner of his eye, the passenger side mirror catches a shape. A brief flare of red, 2 dots, level, following. He watches without turning his head. The dots hold distance, never gaining, never fading. Maybe reflection, maybe company. Either way, they stay until the next hill swallows the road, and then they're gone. He exhales, long and quiet, the way people do when a question decides to live with them. He keeps driving until the highway turns to 4 lanes and the fog loses interest. Town lights appear, thin at first, then gathering. A sign ahead lists exits, numbers ordinary enough to prove he's back in a place that has clocks. He tells himself one last rule before he reaches home. If he ever drives that way again, he won't stop. Not for sleep, not for light, not even for someone calling his name through glass. And somewhere behind him at mile 118, 2 cars sit angled in the dark, one with its hood toward the ditch, one facing the road, both learning how to stay warm without running. Morning finds the highway glazed with leftover fog, the kind that drifts only a few feet above ground and makes headlights seem shy. By 9, 2 state patrol cars idle at the shoulder near mile 118. Their blue lights spin slow against the mist, reflecting in puddles like something trying to remember color. A tow truck backs into the gravel pull-off. The driver, thin, older, the kind of man who hums instead of talking, kills the engine and steps out. The first trooper meets him halfway. Report came from a trucker about 4. The trooper says he saw tail lights burning in the fog, no movement. Dispatch sent a car. When they got here, only 1 vehicle. The tow driver nods, spits into the ditch, polite habit. Same one that keeps showing up on this stretch? Maybe. Couldn't swear to it. Looks older, 80s, early 90s, plates expired in 2011. They walk to the sedan. Its hood tilts toward the ditch. Dew beaded across the paint like a rash. Every window fogged from the inside.
The driver's door closed, unlocked. Inside, one thermos, a flannel shirt folded neat, and a wallet with no cash and no license, just a photo of a woman holding a baby on a porch that could be anywhere. The tow driver squats, runs a finger along the metal near the wheel well. Dust coats his nail. No rust, no salt. Hasn't moved far, he says. Tires hard, but not flat. He looks down and frowns. No tread marks, no ruts from backing in. The trooper checks the ground, just a shallow dip where weight should have been. You figure it was dropped here? Dropped, rolled, wished here, take your pick. He hooks the chain, winches slow. The cable hums like a low voice remembering a song. The car moves with no protest, gravel barely stirring. The smell that rises is faint metal and damp paper. The other trooper stands on the asphalt, watching. No footprints either side, she says, not even ours yet. Her partner glances down. She's right. The gravel holds no impressions, just dark patches where fog condensed. They load the sedan. The tow driver straps it down, wipes his hands and mutters, "Colder than it should be." The trooper half smiles. "It's always colder out here." He nods. "Yeah, but this cold's from inside." They drive off slow, truck and patrol car both, leaving the shoulder almost clean. The mist folds back over the space like an eraser stroke. By noon, the report reaches the district office. In a back cubicle, a clerk logs it under abandoned vehicle, possible missing owner. No registration match, no VIN trace. The digits lead to a manufacturer recall list, long closed. The case file joins a row of others that end at mile 118, each labelled with different months. Same result. Paper doesn't notice repetition, but people do. The senior investigator, Rhodes, pulls 3 files from the shelf. Same road, same mile, same kind of weather. Different drivers, always last seen westbound. He writes a note in pencil. Survey signage, tower beacon, drainage. He doesn't underline anything. People who underline want stories. He only wants order. At lunch, he tells the rookie, "Take the camera car tonight, go out before dark. See if that tower still blinks. If it's short cycling, it might be throwing light into the fog and confusing drivers." The rookie says, "Sure," because rookies always do. 17:42. Sun down behind low clouds. The tower light beats steady, red on, red off, patient as a metronome. The rookie parks on the gravel shoulder and notes the mile marker in his book, 118, green sign leaning half a degree east. He takes 3 photos, the tower, the ditch, the empty pull-off. When he lowers the camera, there's a reflection in the lens. A set of amber flashes behind him, hazard lights pulsing in rhythm with the tower. He turns, the shoulder's empty. The pulse remains in the camera glass a heartbeat longer, then fades. He writes lens flare because that's how the world stays straight. By midnight, the sedan sits in the impound lot under sodium lamps. Moisture still beads on its paint. The mechanic on duty says it hasn't warmed since arrival. Engine block stone cold, he tells Rhodes over the phone. Like it's been sitting a week. Any signs of tampering? Nothing. Key missing, ignition fine, battery reads full. Rhodes says, "Just log it. I'll come by tomorrow." He hangs up, closes the file, rubs his eyes. The building's heating system rattles to life. For a second he thinks he smells exhaust, the faint, sweet tang of warmed antifreeze. But the vent blows only dry air. He pushes his chair back, ready to leave. Out the window, the lot glows silver under the lamps. One light flickers, the one over the impound row. He watches the pattern, 2 short, 1 long, 2 short. Coincidence, probably. But he writes the sequence down anyway because order sometimes needs witnesses. Morning brings rain, steady and fine. When Rhodes drives out to the lot, the sedan sits where it should, moisture streaming down its sides like it's been hosed clean. A worker waves him over. "Weird thing," the man says. "Every car out here is covered in pollen from the storm except that one." Rhodes runs a finger along the trunk, smooth. The metal cool but not wet, the kind of temperature that lives between weather reports. He opens the driver door. The smell hits first, damp wool, cold air, and something faintly sweet, like antifreeze again, but with dust on top. On the seat, the folded flannel lies flat, same as before. He opens the thermos out of habit, empty, clean, warm inside. He sets it down, closes the door gently. "Log it as cleared," he tells the worker. "Let the tower people know they can run a line inspection." He doesn't say why the word warm bothers him. That night, a highway worker changing the bulb in the mile marker sign notices something odd. The new paint is peeling even though it's dry. He scrapes a corner with his glove and finds another number beneath, the faded outline of a 7 where the 8 should be. He wipes again, and for a second the sign reads mile 117, then back to 118. He blinks, shakes his head, writes the note on his clipboard. Replace sign spring season. The rain stops by dawn. The highway dries to its usual dull silver. Drivers pass, their tires whispering. Some glance at the pull-off and feel the small twinge that comes from recognizing something without remembering why. Most don't. The road keeps what it wants. In town, Leon wakes at 8, alarm blinking the same unreadable numbers. The dream's already thinning, just the fog, the steady pulse of red, and the quiet feeling that the car had learned his name. He pours coffee and stares at the window. Outside, the world looks safe. Buses, crosswalk, the morning shifting into color. He tells himself he might take a different route to work tonight. Maybe the interstate, maybe city streets. But when he opens the glove compartment later to check his map, there's a folded piece of paper he doesn't remember writing. 3 words, cramped in his own handwriting. Stay with breathing. He smiles without meaning to, recognition without memory, and folds it smaller until it fits behind his registration card. By evening, the fog will move back up from the basin. The tower will blink red, patient and slow. The pull-off will look clean enough to trust, and somewhere under the topsoil, where the water table breathes, the cold will keep its shape. The week folds into itself the way grey days do, light never quite arriving, night never properly leaving. Leon keeps working, different routes now, city streets that feel safer simply because they have corners. He tells himself the highway's too empty this time of year. That's all it takes for a reason. On Wednesday, his supervisor hands him a different car. Newer model, silver instead of dark blue, heater that works without persuasion. "Take it easy on the back roads," the man says. The state crews are sealing cracks out by the basin. "Don't want tar on new tires." Leon nods. He doesn't mention that he already avoids that stretch. Sometimes you protect people from their own advice. That evening, the sky clears for the first time in days. Cold enough to make the air click in the lungs, but no fog, no drizzle, just the clean quiet of November between storms. He drives the city perimeter making small deliveries, paperwork, nothing urgent. The streets smell like leaf smoke and gasoline. The night feels ordinary enough to trust. He stops at a diner near the county line. The waitress knows him by face, if not name. She brings black coffee and a piece of pie she swears is on the house, which it never is. He leaves cash anyway, because good gestures deserve a landing spot. When he steps back outside, the air's dropped 5 degrees. The parking lot breathes steam from manhole vents, little ghosts rehearsing. His breath joins them and fades. He starts the car, heater on low, radio quiet. The drive home runs smooth for the first 30 minutes. Then traffic thins, buildings shrink, and the road lengthens into something less certain. The stars find him again, those bright thumbtacks that never look the same twice. He checks the dashboard clock. 9:44 p.m. He thinks of the number before he wants to. By the time it rolls to 9:47, he's laughing to himself, soft and without sound, like someone hearing an inside joke from the dark. The road ahead glows clean, no fog, no tower light. The mile markers climb in order, 116, 117, and then the shoulder widens for a moment, gravel turning silver in the headlights. He slows without choosing to. Habit more than curiosity. The sign flashes green and white. Mile 118. The pull-off is empty. No sedan, no ditch reflection. Just damp gravel and a pair of flattened weeds where tires once pressed. He eases the car past without stopping. He tells himself that's growth. He tells himself not to look in the mirror. He fails gently. In the mirror's corner, the red tower light still winks from the far side of the basin, steady, polite, like a friend waving from a distance that doesn't change. He drives until it fades behind low trees. He doesn't notice when the clock slides from 9:47 to 9:46 and back again. Some things only break when you watch them. 2 nights later, he dreams of the pull-off. Not of the car, just the sound the gravel makes when a tire settles after the engine cuts. The kind of noise that says, stay instead of go. He wakes before dawn, breath fogging the cold room, and knows he won't sleep again until he sees it in daylight. He's never been good at leaving stories without checking the punctuation. By mid-morning, he's back on the highway. The sun flattens everything to silver. The fog has burned off. The basin lies low and harmless. The tower looks smaller in daylight, its red bulb replaced by an ordinary white globe, blinking to no one in particular. He parks at the shoulder where the gravel mouth begins, steps out, and listens. The air smells like mud, diesel, and the faint sweetness of dry grass. The sound of passing cars comes late, as if the air forgets to deliver it on time. He walks the pull-off slow. No cold patches, no marks. The weeds that framed the tire ruts stand again, brittle and sun-bleached. A piece of mirror glass lies half buried near the ditch. No frame, no curve, just a flat shard big enough to catch the sky. He picks it up. It's warm from the sun, harmless. When he tilts it, the reflection shows nothing behind him but road. He sets it back down where it was. Every place deserves its own evidence. He crouches by the ditch. The soil's damp, dark red under the top layer, the color of old iron. A trickle of water threads between the stones and disappears underground with a sound too small to keep. He presses his hand to the ground. It's cool but not cold. He stays there until the warmth leaves his palm. "Okay," he says, "you win." It isn't surrender, more like a handshake. He stands, dusts his knees, and looks once more at the tower. From this angle it's nothing special. 4 metal legs, a ladder, a bulb the size of a fist. The blinking feels slower in daylight, though the pace hasn't changed. He watches 3 pulses, nods to the rhythm, and returns to the car. Before he gets in, he writes a line in the dust on the hood with his finger. Safe enough now. The words look temporary, which is the right kind of truth. The next gust of wind wipes them clean. That night, he doesn't dream. He does something stranger. He sleeps all the way through without checking the clock. In the morning, the alarm sounds at 8 a number that feels honest again. The paper on his table, the one with the note, "Stay with breathing," has curled at the edges. He unfolds it, smooths it flat, and copies the words into his pocket notebook, where he keeps phone numbers and fuel receipts. It doesn't feel like superstition anymore. It feels like instruction. He makes breakfast, window open to the cold. Across the street, a neighbor's car won't start. The man curses softly, pops the hood, laughs at himself, and goes back inside for jumper cables. The sound makes Leon smile. Machines forgetting how to wake are normal. They always have been. He looks at his own car, parked under the thin sun, metal dull but alive. He knows he'll drive again tonight, different route, maybe east this time, where the bridges make their own weather. But part of him knows the road past mile 118 isn't finished with him, and he's not finished with it. That's not haunting, that's geography. Evening falls clear again. He leaves early, stopping for gas at a station near the river. The attendant leans out, says, "You heading west? Watch that fog. They say it lifts, then drops again after 9? He nods, pays, drives on. At 9:41 he passes mile 114. At 9:43 a deer flashes white in the ditch and vanishes. At 9:47 nothing special happens, and that in itself feels like mercy. He hums with the radio, an old song that fits the road's rhythm. When he rounds the long curve where the tower used to blink in the corner of his eye, he glances right out of habit and sees only air. Open, unlit, harmless. But a few miles later, near another stretch of gravel, a small shape by the guardrail catches his light. He slows, cautious. Just a scrap of something, metal maybe, or cloth. He pulls over, leaves the engine running, steps out. The air smells of pine sap and exhaust. On the shoulder sits a thermos. Silver, clean, no dent, lid tight. He bends, picks it up. It's warm. Not sun-warm, body-warm like it's been held. He looks around. The road is empty. The wind has died. Even the tower light is gone from view. He turns the thermos in his hands. The bottom bears faint etching from an old sticker. Stay with breathing. He laughs once, because there are coincidences, and then there are messages that just choose simpler handwriting. He sets the thermos on the guardrail, not taking it, not leaving it exactly, just returning it to air. "Somebody else can need you next," he says, and gets back in the car. He drives home with the window cracked. The wind slides in cool and easy. The dashboard clock ticks forward like a metronome that's made peace with time. The road's hum evens out into something almost kind. By dawn, fog gathers again across the basin, soft and thin the way it does when stories rest instead of end. The pull-off sits empty, gravel dark with dew. The tower still stands but doesn't blink, bulb burned out sometime after midnight. On the shoulder, the thermos catches the first line of sun and holds it steady, warm against the cold air. A passing car slows just enough for the driver to look, not stop, not think. Just take in the sight of metal glinting like breath and keep going. The engine hums. The mirror reflects nothing but daylight. The road resets. It always does. He never filed a report about the thermos. Some nights don't ask for proof. They just hand you something warm and tell you to drive safe. Out there, past the basin and the tower, the road has already forgotten its own cold. And maybe that's the point. Some stories don't end where the paper stops. They end when the breathing evens out, when the engine sound blends back into the quiet. That's where we'll leave it tonight. I keep the lamp low a moment longer, and thank you for staying with a true place and a quiet road. A story that never asked for noise to be real. If you're still here, breathe once with me. Slow in, slow out. That's all the record we need. Down below, drop your city and your local time. Add what you're listening on, phone, car, earbuds, or a TV across the room, so our night map can stretch a little farther. Every comment leaves a small light somewhere on that map, and I see them all. New calm history horror arrives most nights. If this one kept you company, wait until the video ends, then subscribe and tap the bell so the next file finds you right on time. After that, tell me what detail stayed with you. The red tower blinking, the mile marker that changed its mind, or the thermos left to warm the air. I'll be here tomorrow night. Same lamp, same slow breath. Ready for the next quiet piece of history that didn't know it was horror until someone wrote it down.